Welcome back to the Build Show with me, Jake Bruton, and we are going to cut back into part 2 of the What's the Best Insulation video that published the first half last week. So I hope you enjoy. Thanks for sticking around and thanks for coming back.
Basically, you can see the spray foam here is already installed. The truck, the piece of equipment that came and did that, has a proportioner on it that basically heats and proportions the 55-gallon drums of material that are on the truck, heats that material in the proportioner, sends it through the hose, completely separated until it gets to the tip of the gun. At that point, those two chemicals mix with each other and there's a chemical reaction that begins to expand. With your open cell foam, the propellant basically in it is water. So when you see someone that's spraying open cell foam and it mixes after it's hit that wall cavity, you'll see the steam that comes off of it.
A moisture release.
Right, and that was the propellant of that. And they use different refrigerants in the closed cell foam as the propellants in that, and so you don't see the steam that comes off of it. There's still a high temperature reaction within it.
Yeah, there's an exothermic reaction that happens that you can tell a difference when you walk into a house when they're spraying foam.
Oh, absolutely.
That it really is all of a sudden a different temperature.
Right. Like there's 212 that comes off of this, the boiling point of water. So it will add a lot of heat to the house, while we're in there working. Same thing with the clothes, but it doesn't get to that high of a temperature. Plus the materials, when they're sprayed, are anywhere from 109 to 130.
Okay.
2 degrees is what we spray them at.
Okay.
And that depends on the temperature, the substrate that we're working with. On a, today we're 34 degrees. Got to turn our temperatures up just a little bit.
Yeah.
So the substrate doesn't pull the heat out of the material and let it expand. We want it to get this maximum expansion in it.
So that is another good conversation. Everything on this half of the table, as long as you're able to be there working, you can install this stuff. Pretty much.
Yeah, except for the fact where you're, if you're trying to wet spray.
Yeah. You couldn't be well below freezing and spraying that product. Now, these on the other hand, and I'm not sure, the closed cell we have here is isonining, and I know that each manufacturer varies a little depending on what their agents are and their chemical makeup, but a lot of them say 45 degrees and higher. And that doesn't mean 45 degrees air temperature. That means 45 degrees surface temperature.
Substrate, correct.
Yeah, so that substrate is not zapping all of the temperature out of it. We're not using it to warm the house. We're using it to warm the insulation.
Right, and those temperatures are, you can spray in lower temperatures with open cell foam than you can spray, with the closed. The closed used to be for years and years was about 40 degrees. They have formulas now that will take it down into the mid-20s. I've seen it sprayed lower than that, but what happens is you don't get the expansion out of the product. You're still going to get good foam. It's just not going to be economical to spray it when you have to keep going back over it and putting another layer on it. So the customer, gets the inches that you were told that you're going to have sprayed in there. You just get more layers and more material in it. Where if this house were supposed to use a set of material and we were trying to spray it, which we wouldn't want to, but if you sprayed it when it was 25 and didn't have a winter type formula, maybe it'd take a set and a half.
Okay, so we'd be using more to get the same volume, caused based off temperature changes the reaction.
Right. But it's what it affects is the adhesion in it too.
Gotcha.
You want to make sure that, and these products are, the foam, this open cell foam, basically I call it hydrophobic. It won't absorb moisture. The isoning product won't absorb moisture. However, if there's moisture on that wall, then this product won't stick to it. I mean, if you run a heater like that for a long time before we were to come in here and start spraying, and it had a real thin layer of moisture on it, this product wouldn't stick.
Okay.
So that's not very negative, but there's some negative there on it.
So when we're talking about the open cell, closed cell conversation, for me, I always steer away from open cell.
Okay.
I don't like the way that it melts when it gets wet, or it starts to deteriorate if it gets wet. Obviously, we don't want any of these getting wet.
Correct.
My biggest thing is I don't get the same R value per inch. Obviously, I'm paying more for closed cell.
Right.
I'm paying less for this. But I also know that my drywallers sometimes will mash that corner of that rock into the wall when they're trying to, and with this product where you can destroy this product and ruin its R value. That doesn't mean that it's not right for lots of people in lots of places. Sure. But if we look at, these are actually holes that we drilled in the envelope here to push vents through. I can't really damage this product. It gives structural integrity to the house. Now, we're not relying on this for any structural integrity. And if you've ever had to take it out, you know you don't want to remodel a house that has this in it. But there's plenty of things that we can do to try to avoid things like that. For instance, here at the Spring Valley house, we sprayed it 2 inches thick in the walls before we did any of our wiring, before we ran our mechanical line sets, before we did anything. It was framing windows, lid upstairs, and we blew it in. Because we have a 2x8 wall, we have enough cavity to the inside where we're able to run our wires. And now when I go to remodel, the only time I would have to deal with that is if we're taking out a wall.
Right.
It wouldn't be rewiring something, would mean removing foam. And the other thing that we wanted to do here was we wanted to prove that while we're using this product, we can punch in all of our exterior outlets and wires for exterior lights and then foam them after the fact so that it's not encapsulated in the really hard closed cell, it's encapsulated in a can foam. Talk to me about the difference between can foam and these two, Steve.
Well, okay, these are one component foams. They basically are classified as a closed cell foam. You can compress them,
Yep.
but it's just a different chemical makeup. It's basically an air that is the propellant in it, but it is a one component foam. Great for sealing around gaps, cavities, windows, doors, plumbing that goes, through the plates.
Penetrations
exactly.
from different elevations for flame spread and things like that.
Right.
And there's a million companies that make these products, and they all have their own little finicky, like I think one of these says that it's 60 to 100 is the install range.
Right.
So like it's a chemical process. It's not like putting bats or boards in. It's a chemical process. You have to be aware of the parameters that the manufacturer recommends.
Right. The expansion product. As you see, this one says no warp, used for windows and doors.
Yep.
You put this product in and it won't bow, the window frames. Some of the other foams that you can use, for like your fire blocking or things like that, are a harder foam, and so it's a little bit less forgiving around the windows and doors if you get one overfilled and bow that frame. In the past, you could see wooden double hung windows that people would overfill with foam, and it would bow it enough that you couldn't move the sash up and down.
And I think that's happened enough that I think some of the U.S. manufacturers, at least, are now recommending to stuff with fiberglass instead of foam.
Right. But if it's installed right, you go clear back to the brick mold on it. That it'll survive.
Yep. And so here we're actually using some of these products. We're using that can foam here, and we're foaming just the interior side of the window and leaving a void on the outside so that product has a little airspace there, and we're able to control it by using the right product and knowing what product we have. Another interesting one is I had a conversation with a major manufacturer a few years ago, and their rep was explaining to me, now I don't know that this is 100% the truth, but he was explaining to me that the Fireblock product that's orange, the only thing that's different about it is that it's orange. And that's so that the inspector can walk up and point at it and go, I see that you've done your fire blocking.
Right.
So every product has its place. They all have their own particulars. So let's talk real quick about the insulation package and the walls here.
I'd like to return to something here.
Okay.
Okay. The open cell foams, you can tell, it's come back a
Yep.
little bit from your
It
crushing
has, it has
on it.
bounced back.
Some, so it's still holding that air that it needs to. Some manufacturers you can see the effect of water. This isonine product that we use, they call it's hydrophobic, that it's afraid of water. But you can pass water through this product, bulk water, like from a roof line, and have it come through this product, and it'll drip out of the side, out of the end of it.
Okay, without destroying the product.
Without destroying the product.
Okay.
I've seen this where it will just float in like a petri dish of water and take it out, and it doesn't break it down.
Okay.
Some will. So I needed to.
Yeah, that's fine.
Needed to get that.
That's why you're here.
Yeah.
You keep me from saying something
Okay.
that's not.
All right.
So the insulation package here in our walls, we said is an R42 thereabouts. And the way that we're getting that, if we start at the back side of our sheathing product, we're getting 2 inches of closed cell foam from you guys. It's an isonine product. That's roughly an R13, right?
Right. We're at. I don't know which one of the isonines they're using. There's LEs and HR. Or anyway, this product is probably 7.1 to 7.2. But right in that. When you start talking foams and worrying about R factors, that's not where I go with it.
And so that's a good point, actually. The way the R factor reads on this product is different than the way it reads, say, on a fiberglass bat, because we were talking about air moving through this one.
Correct.
That air moving through is carrying temperature with it.
Right.
This is at 3 inches, there's almost no air moving through it. There's almost no vapor moving through it.
Yeah, at 1.5 inches on this closed cell product, it is an air barrier.
Okay.
So the number is 0.00.
Yeah.
Liter. Yeah. It is a
really low.
It is an air barrier product.
Yep.
So now, when you mention 3 inches, the open cell product is an air barrier at that. Any of these fibrous products, you'll never get there.
Yeah. And you could get there with board if the seams are treated.
Oh, absolutely.
Certainly.
Yes. Yeah.
So we have the spray foam that was installed here, and then we'll have a blown in place fiberglass product that will bring us almost to R35, and then we'll have another 1 inch on the outside. I don't know if you can see the seam, and I can't separate these products. This product that's on the outside is a polyiso board, but that product actually didn't come from our insulators. It was installed by our framers because it comes adhered on the back of the zip sheeting that we're using. So when we talk air barrier with these products, I would say my air barrier is on the outside because we're using the green zip sheething and
Right, as long
taping
as
the
you got
seams.
everything taped, exactly.
So you're looking at there, from here to the back side of my sheathing, I'm already an R21. So while we have less than half by volume of the insulation that's going to go in this wall installed already, we're already above code for our market, which is an R19, R21.
Right.
So there's what our wall assembly looks like. And we talked about we have an R70 in the attic. We actually use the cellulose product up there. And the reason we went above that R60 is we had the space.
Right.
Like, we're paying for windows from Europe. We're using spray foam down here. We're having insulation under our slab. This is a really well-built home. We're trying for energy efficiency. That R10 costs virtually nothing in the grand scheme of things. Why not just up it a little bit and hope that we're doing our best effort.
Jake, I wanted to expand on the part that you've got this foam sheathing on the exterior, so you can't see your stud cavities from the exterior of the house with a infrared camera. That is an important part of it, where you've got all of those studs that you add them up, and then you look at that house and you might have an area that might be 15 feet long that you can actually see the studs through. But with this product on the exterior, that exterior insulation, you don't have that heat loss.
So that's a really good point, actually. When we talked R value about all these products, we're not talking about R value once it's installed in the wall. We're talking about the R value of this product. This product doesn't make up but maybe 60% of the wall cavity.
Correct.
The total wall assembly. So we have 20% of our wall or 18% of our wall is our framing members, and then another 20% or thereabouts, traditionally in the United States, is glazing or our windows or fenestration. And when we look at our value of our studs, we're an R1 per inch. So this 2x8 stud is an R8 in a cavity where we're talking about having R35 in the cavity. So we put that R6 on the outside, as Stebrick would say, we're wearing a jacket.
Right.
We're warming the entire assembly of our house. That ability to put the insulation on the outside, this is an R14. It's coupled next to a stud that's an R8, like we just talked about. This is an R7 or R6. It still is that. We get full R value out of that. So this is the best insulation that we have on the whole house in this assembly probably, because we're getting the most bang for our buck out of that R value.
Right.
We're not cutting down in our assembly at all.
Correct.
So when we talk in R13 wall, R19, R45, it's not R45 in the end.
The whole thickness.
It's R45 worth of insulation in that wall. The calculation is much less in reality, but that's a really nebulous thing to chase around and say, well, the actual R value of this wall, because there's more studs in this wall or there's more glass in that wall. So when we talk about R value, we're talking about the product and the R value of that product. So that brings us to the one last point, is the exterior insulation, I would say, for the review of what these are. That exterior insulation, the more you can put out there in the cold climate, the better you'll be, because you're warming the entire house.
Correct.
You get full R value out of it. I just wanted to make sure that's a really clear, really specific point that we want to make. The only reason we go with the 1-inch foam for us, it works really well with our structural requirements, and we just haven't used any of the thicker Zip R products yet. So the other reason that you're here today, I don't want you to think that this is just a commercial for these guys.
Oh no.
They actually had a mistake. When we talk about this product being manufactured on site, there are things that can go wrong, like we talked about. And I wanted to show you guys the little mistake that we found upstairs, and we'll talk about how we're gonna fix it. So let's go upstairs and let's talk about what happened. All right, so now we're upstairs. This actually happens to be the master closet. This is a north wall. We know that the conditions were fine when they sprayed. Everything had been swept for dust. Nobody else was in the building. Nobody else had access. Temperatures were fine. And so we still had two little spots. And we've inspected the whole house. We do really feel like those are the only two spots. And you can see on the surface it was hard. On the back side, when we pulled it, now this foam's been here for a few months, it still is a little spongy and soft. And Steve looked at it and knew right away what the issue was. So do you want to walk us through what's going on?
Well, I think we've got the cartridge that was in it evidently had a clog in one side of it, and we just didn't get a good mix of chemical in that area, or it would have reacted just like the rest of this, and the pieces that are over here anyway, and have broken. So it didn't completely cure. So we didn't have a one-to-one mix of A side to B side, and that could have been caused just by the cartridge that's in there has holes on both sides of it. If one of them was a little clogged, it didn't, and that would drop the pressure on the machine, and would have had an issue.
And so, you know, we talked about installation of fiberglass and the issues that you can have with that, getting it in place. We talked about restrictions and temperature problems with cellulose. If it's too cold, the water in it will freeze. It's just like any other product. Nobody's perfect.
Nope.
You need a good, well-trained installer. You need somebody that's paying attention. You need somebody that caught that they had a clog and adjusted. And on the surface, it looked like it was fine. We noticed a few weeks later there was a little bit of pulling, and that's how we discovered this.
Right.
But,
and I appreciate the fact that you know that nobody's perfect on it, and we are back here to fix it. And that's what you have to do as a company that stands behind all their product.
And the cool thing about how you're going to fix it is we didn't bring the truck back.
Correct.
We're actually going to use what's commonly referred to as a froth pack.
Right.
It looks like two little helium tanks or two propane tanks for your house, A side and B side, and we have a gun. So let's do that now. Let's talk about how it's going to be, it's going to operate.
Let me go grab that.
All right, now that we've finished the repair upstairs, I just wanted to say, Steve, with G5, thanks for coming, man. That was awesome.
I appreciate it. Glad we could take care of that problem upstairs.
And now that we have talked about all these products, I think again, the takeaway, they have their place, they have their reason to be used. You need to talk to your installer, you need to look into what the manufacturer recommends, but each one of these could be involved in just about any product or any house. It just depends on what your goal is. So thanks for watching, thanks for tuning in. This is a lengthy video. Don't forget to follow me, Jake.Bruton, on Instagram. Till next time on The Build Show, Steve and I,
all right.
thank you.
Thank you.